It's strong, I tell you. It's strong. It's strong.
You're watching the most unique automotive channel on YouTube, the Hoosier Garage.
And if you're wondering what this is that is strong, something like that. But there's more. So although this was originally an army van, we're not really following in the same utilitarian effort in that way, I guess. Where a lot of army vans had the bench seats in them and maybe bench seats on the side, and then, you know, everybody hop out and do that sort of thing. But the premise is kind of there, and there's a reason for it. There's going to be this on this side, which I've just completed doing the framework on it after a day and a half. I didn't film anything yesterday because I've never done this before, and I'm kind of feeling my way through it. For months and months I've tried to figure out a design, and I think I nailed it. I got to build one for this side, so I'll show you a little bit of that, maybe a little bit of entertainment, maybe learn something from that, from what I've done. But what we're going to do here, and let me show you. Let me grab a tape measure here. This is the only technically truck that I have, van slash truck. I have a car otherwise. We have the Duster, which is in progress right now. But there's times where I gotta haul stuff. There's times where I'm really into parts now. I might get big parts, little parts, stuff like that. But I also like the whole deal of vanning and vanners from the old days. They would build a platform bed back here. And in some cases you would have some extra walling on the sides here to kind of isolate it. But a lot of times when they build them that way, they are pretty much permanent. Everything's out, at least in this area, is hammered down good. It's screwed in. It's pretty much non-adaptable. Now there's cases where you can build this platform if you do need to haul something. You can remove the bed-like apparatus and lay it on top of it. That's well and good. One of my thoughts was, if I have something longer that goes up there in the carpet area, and I know I haven't really showed you much of the carpet, you'll get to see some of that here in a bit. But I want to be able to lay out a cover over the carpet so we don't ruin it in case something is dirty, dusty, greasy, anything like that. And it can extend up towards the seating area, which is, on a shorty van like this, is 8 feet. So, let's see, this tape measure is right there at the back of that seat, right there. That puts you 8 feet, right about here, okay? So a shorty, they make them to where they're very utilitarian. There's 8 feet along that way of solid storage space, and then you got just over 4 feet between these wheel wells, okay? So if I want to haul some 4x8 drywall, I can do it. When I decided to do this type of format here, my framing in my brain when I was doing it and I started drawing out was out here on the outside of this, okay? Now if I measure this, this would be any of the Dodge vans from this B-Series van. That wheel well to this wheel well is 50 inches, so it's 2 inches over 4 feet. So my thought was, well, if I put this 2x3 framing out here, we're going to really cut into our 4 feet wide area. And I want to be a little conservative with that. So what I did was I decided to go flush. So if you remove that, the boards up there, they will be flush with the wheel well, okay? Now there will be a little interference, and like I said, there's 2 inches over 4 foot. So I'm going to use some probably about 1/2 inch board, and we're going to cover these. That way it'll neaten it up a little bit. This area here will be an extra little cubby hole storage space, as well as this side. So we still get storage inside of here, and we also get our width if we want to haul something wide, you know, lay down in there smoothly. Okay, that's my thinking. The only real obstruction to that is, see how I have the seats up there with they're on the pedestals. Well, my son, as he gets older, he loves playing in the van. As he's a toddler right now, and so hopefully as we encourage the automotive thing for future generation, I'm going to put another seat back here, and it'll favor probably behind the driver's side so that we'll have room access here. And so I need to figure out something there, because if I put something that's 4 feet wide and 8 feet long there, the stem of that seat is going to get in the way. So I might have to do some little engineering there, but we'll get to that later. But right now we'll worry about this part. And what this part will have as an addition, so that we'll have a bed, so that we'll have a platform. Think of a tonneau cover on a truck. Just imagine the roof being gone here and just being a truck. You know, you have your bed sides, you know, your wheel wells, and if you have a tonneau cover, you lift it up, and you have all kinds of storage. You have up to here, the back where the doors close, 51 inches, just over 4 feet. It's a lot of storage space that we can use. We can carry things around. We can carry around extra parts. Since it's a 50-year-old van, we can carry extra tools. If we go find something somewhere and it's not too big, we can just stuff it in here. If we want to carry the bed material, we can roll it up and put it in here. And like I said, we have our other cubby holes here for other stuff too. What I want to make it do is we'll probably put some sides here so it kind of closes this off mildly, but make it all modular where you can remove it. If I do haul the drywall, it'll look almost just like this, but the sides will be boxed and slide it in. If we want to run the bed, which will probably most of the time, until we have to take it out, it would run across here. And if you look, I have it going about 15 3/4 tall. I kind of decide on that. It gets you a little more, gives you a little bit of a platform, but if you set up on it, you're not bumping your head too much. So that platform will set right about here. So all this area in here will be storage. And then I want to make it where it can hinge, swing it up, and easily, like hood pins on a car, you can pull the pins out, make them a little hidden so they don't look so obvious. You can pop them out, and you can either turn the whole thing upside down and slide it back, and then use it as kind of a boxed in area here, or you can just take it out completely. But you'll have all this space, you'll have all these little features, it'll come up level with that. Just make it completely adaptable. It could do a truck, and it could work as the boogie van, you know, concept, or if you want to go travel and have a camper van type thing, it's all available. It's all in one, kind of like the models we used to build when we was kids, or still do now. So spend a little bit of time kind of engineering this, making it nice and rigid there, and a lot of it's just going to screw basically into the subflooring that I have in the van. I still need to screw the subfloor down, so I'm going to put a handful of screws into the area above the U-frame so that it's not having anything sticking down, getting in the way. If you have to get under there, it won't scrape your hand, it won't cut into a fuel line, a brake line. It'll be out in that empty space where the frame rails go, and there's one about here all the way up, one back here. They're pretty straightforward, so we'll run a couple screws there to tighten that down, keeps it from rattling around or raising up or anything. And then this will ultimately just have a handful of screws in key places just to hold it down, and that'll keep it really secure. On the sides here I have a little extension where we had to make the floor a little wider. I might run some small screws there, and we'll have to be very, very careful not to run it into something like I mentioned earlier. You got the vent lines over there, you got your fuel inlet here for that one. Over there you might have a brake line or a fuel line on one side or the other that you have to be cognizant and not penetrate any of that and cause you more problems. Okay, so what I really want to do, I want to duplicate a similar situation on this side. There is a little bit of a difference where these corners are. They have a little bit of a different trajectory here. So you have your vent tube on these 72s and some other models, I'm sure. And I come out a few inches from that. I just made almost like a 45 here, and we just boxed it in that way. Now over on this side, I have some loose lumber here. You can't be quite as tight because this is where your fuel inlet is. It's like a shield that covers the tube so you don't get fumes and, you know, moisture and all that. So it'll be very similar to the other side, but it'll have a little bit of a different corner here. Otherwise, most of it will fall pretty much symmetrical to what this looks like. So I can duplicate a lot of that over here. Now another little perk, and I'll show you, I don't have any of the materials yet, but I'll show you what we have planned to save some more space here. Or maybe I should say utilize the space with saving it. So right here, very common spot to put 6x9 speakers. So that'll help utilize this area in here as well as over there. So, you know, they're symmetrical, and you have to finish this out. You'll have 2 speakers here, and you'll have a nice sound system to add to. And we can always add in a van like this more speakers somewhere else if we think it needs it. So that's kind of a cool thing. We can add them in there, do a vintage vibe like we have on everything else in here. And you'll be using that space. And like I said, we'll have the cubby holes up there on the sides of that. So everything is pretty much being used. Really, the only thing that I haven't come up with anything right now is right here, very shallow space. But you can always make a little lid with a door and then put a couple things in there, and you know, just make it your own. Depends on how tall you make this, how short it is. If you go shorter, it could be right on top of it and you're not wasting any space. Just depends on what you really think would work best for you. Okay, so if you're not much into wood, building stuff like this, there is a handful of tools you will need. One of them will be glue. My dad always used Titebond glue, and he was a woodworker, and this is always one of his favorite glues, so I'm just kind of following that. I think he's right. A lot of joints go together better when you run a screw through them. Titebond, you know, any wood glue would work. Some are better than others. Small frame or square, large frame or square. That way you can keep everything in square. Marker, drill. Good to have a mallet or a hammer of some sort. This doesn't mar as much, so that's good. It's good to have a jigsaw for cutting small areas, tight areas, intricate areas if you're trying to lock something together. This is a good thing to have. A chop saw, which is outside for dust purposes. And a wood rasp, which is like a file for wood. Helps when you get little nubs or burrs or something on your wood. You just need to kind of grind it off real quick, flatten something out that just needs a little bit of effect to it. So a rasp is always good to have. Okay, so with a lot of this stuff I had just laying across here, kind of dumped over, I stripped it away to kind of show you some basics. So a couple things I wanted to do first was establish kind of a footer here with the wheel well. Okay, we got the same situation over here, and they go back against the paneling, and they come out to where they are flush with the face of the wheel well. Okay, this one here is just to add a little stability to what you're going to build up. So I put some glue in here and ran some screws into the end, real long screws. You can countersink these if you want. Use a little bit bigger drill so the head will go in, and you'll get them a little deeper in there. So you can do that. And I screwed both of them down to the wood floor. This one back here, just a footer for the rear section, and this is just a beginning of an upright right here. So you'll have a handful of these, and that'll just be what brings the level up to where you want it. I've got these already in here. They're basically, you know, kind of triangular. Like, they're actually not a 45, they're about a 50-degree angle. They're just coming with the slope of the wheel well here. So I've got 2 of them, and they kind of set loose. I still need to glue those, and you'll have the duplicate on this side. So you put the same thing over here, and you try to keep them, you know, in line so that everything, when it comes together, will go together right. So I have these 2 sitting there, those 2 there, and that brings a lot of rigidity, kind of the triangle in engineering, together, so you have a real nice structure. Like when we started a video, it's staining on it, and it's not a lot of torsional twist. It's all got some angles to it. I do have these 2, which kind of represent this long one here and this little bit shorter one, because it's back before it hits the corner of the van. So these would be your 2 straightaways. So you can just set them aside right now. So I'm going to show you something here. There's different ways to do things. If you're good with dowel pins, you can use dowel pins, use a lot of glue. And this is actually what I had to intend doing here. Okay, I was going to drill it, which the hole would fall in here. You would have the pin sticking out, and you would drive this on top of it with the glue in the joints, and you know, so on and so forth. So you can like that. But right now I'm just going to use that as a filler. I'm going to cut this end off with the jigsaw. But I decided to just run a regular screw in it. So I used a small bit so that we don't cause splittage in all this real wide grain wood that you find nowadays. So use a drill that is about as wide as the threads on your screw. And we was able to run it all the way through. And then we take something that's at least as wide as the head and drill down just enough so you can get a little bit deeper grab on this. So by the time it goes through, the head will go deeper than just the surface, and you'll get more thread into the wood. Always keep in mind where this is going to go. If it goes too far, it's going to go through here. It's going to be sticking out, and that won't look good from the other side, which would be the outside. So just a little tip, get your angle right to where it goes into the most wood that you can. So I'm going to trim this off. We're going to put some glue on here, and it'll eventually go down there, and we'll screw it down, and we should have one of our other legs up. So instead of trying to do the angle and wanting to walk away from me, I'll determine where up here I want it to be. So obviously it's going to come over that corner and stretch right around there. So I will start right here, but I want to come a little bit to the side of this, because if I go this angle here, it's going to go through this and it might cause some instability. So I'll actually come over on this side, not too close to the edge and not too much in the middle. It'll run down alongside of that. Once I establish kind of a hole to pivot out of, then I turn it with the angle that I drew. Try to keep it straight with the piece so it don't bust out the side. See that? Like I said, if we want to demonstrate a countersink, I was using this tape to kind of show on some other areas, but it doesn't really relate to this one. So I'll just put it in there just a little bit so the head will sink in some. So I put it in about 1/4 of an inch. We can go ahead and get it started. One good thing you can do if you have trouble starting the screw or holding everything together, you can get the screw in as far as you can before it protrudes too much out. So right there, there's the pointy end of the screw, and we could just start right there, and that'll give us a good place to, once we're ready to nail it, it'll already be into the wood. So we want to put our glue on it. Flush with this because it's also flush with that. Try to even it up with this one. If you need to, put a square across it, you can, but really it doesn't matter so much that these are lined up just in the vicinity, because the railing is going to be on top of them anyways. It's all going to be hidden. But if you're really picky about it, go ahead and do it that way. So I'm going to establish that there, and with that pointy edge just sticking out a little bit from that screw, it kind of helped me dig it in there. It kind of takes a little bit of a footing. So we go ahead and take our driver here, reline that up. It's got the glue on it. And then we get it stuck in there, okay? Now we do want it to press together so that the glue will work, but if I want to put another screw in there, which I would like to, I'll put it down here in this corner and try to use the same trajectory on it. So I'll go ahead and establish that. And a lot of this works on just kind of carpentry in general. I've done a little bit, not a lot. There's always some better tricks. There's better ways for it to look really intricate, but I'm just kind of doing basics, trying to make it strong and go from there. See, that's how that wants to spin away. So we'll try to hang on to it there. Start our hole, and then go at the angle we want. I'm going a little bit higher than what this one is, so they'll actually be going in at angles from each other. I'm just going to go through this piece only. Switch back over to my driver. Get it started. It's down a lot lower, so I'm not going to countersink that one. Make sure that we're flush. One thing you can do here, if you're not sure, if it really needs to matter in your situation, the floor's pretty level, it's clean. You know there's a light under it. This is where the top of the area is. And you got a little bit of light there. You can always bring it out like that, where it's reasonable. So right about there is good. Hold it carefully. Here, got its bite. And we'll get this one driven in first. There we go. You can always touch it up with this, but sometimes the screw you're using might want to spin out on you. So we can go a little further, I can control the speed of it better. And same thing on that one. Glue's gushing out, so we know we're getting good contact. Pretty good. There is a little bit of movement in it. Probably just the way the cut was. It's not setting completely flush. But if you let that alone for a bit, it does move enough where I can actually adjust it. We can check our squareness. Let that glue set up, it'll hold it in there tight. Just make sure you want it, you got where you want it. And it should be in good, we should be in good company there. That side over there, I'm gonna go ahead, they're just screwed in. I'm going to pop them back out, put glue on them, re-screw them back in, maybe put an extra screw in there for strength, and we'll move on.
And now, a classic Indiana car commercial.
They're coming to Indianapolis in record numbers. Hundreds of special-ordered Chrysler and Plymouth cars. And your 4 Indianapolis Chrysler Plymouth dealers have got to sell them now as they celebrate LeBaron being named Pace Car of this year's 500. Make your best deal on over 1,000 cars in stock, including Voyagers, LeBarons, New Yorkers, Horizons, Reliance, and more. All come with Chrysler's 770 protection plan. Drive home a winner now from one of your 4 Indianapolis Chrysler Plymouth dealers.
Okay, so now I'm going to use my longer lengthwise piece. And one thing I did here, the other side comes out to 15 and a half, sorry. 15 and a half off this subfloor. So right here, 15 and a half. We're in pretty good shape, but sometimes these will sag, they'll go down. So all you do is bring it up, and this one's doing just a little bit. You bring it up, and I took my marker and swiped it so that the lines should intersect when I go to put it together. If they're sitting way apart like that, I know it's not where I wanted it. So I'm going to put it like that, try to keep this flush. We can turn it if we have to. And what I got to do, I went ahead and ran my pilot hole all the way through, just this board only. And we can see if we're ready for the screw. And we are. It's going to go in there deep enough. But I will go ahead, just for the sake of it, countersink it just a little bit. Right when it starts to bite, I'll back off of it. Get my driver back in here. Have that ready. And what I can do is get our glue ready. And I'm lining it up back here in the rearmost piece to where it's square. There's no overhang on it. It's not what I was looking for, so that's good there. I can kind of lay down on it here. Grip them in together. Don't drill through your hands or nothing like that. solid there. And check it, just make sure. Sometimes this doesn't go down into the countersink very well. If you've got a longer bit, it'll do. So that's pretty tight there. And I want to go ahead and establish another one. So since that's holding it all in place, make sure we're not twisted here. Move it just a little bit like that. And I'll do another one about 1.5 inches away. Sometimes I like to stagger them, though they're not in the same path of grain, so that they'll reduce the chance of splitting it. So where they might look like they're kind of messy, it's actually just staggered. I'm not going to countersink that one as much since it is a little smaller here. Get our driver back in, ready to go. And if you ever feel like your screws, you got a good pathway for them, but they're maybe not going as well, you can just take some beeswax and put it on the threads. That'll help it lubricant, help them go down in there a little better. I'll go ahead and finish up this one over here, make sure that they're in line. A little bit of adjustment. We'll have to do our measurement like we did on this side, make sure this isn't sagging, so it needs to go up just a hair, right about there. We'll glue this one and do the exact same thing that we did over here. Alright, so I just did the same thing on this piece next to the wall. The only real difference was, since I have the other piece already established, I wanted to make sure that I was square with it. So if you bring that up, it's flush here and you get it flush there, it should line up the face of it just like this one is. So that's what happened there, and we did pretty much the same procedure. Made sure everything's flat all the way across. We're good like that. And on to the next step. And that next step's pretty simple. We really are just going to establish one of the crossover links, because this is, doing all this stuff, so you need a brace in there. And this is how wide the piece is on the opposite side. So it's a little floppy right now. So what I'll go ahead and do, I'll try to measure it up so it's symmetrical over there. I'll countersink some holes here, I'll glue it, run some screws in, and then when I take this out later after we get it all boxed in, I can screw it back from the other side. Or you can even toe nail it, and toe nailing is where you go in from the corner here, kind of like what we did down there. But in construction, it's like you go from here, puts it in there and it holds it. But we could probably just go from the back side. It's whatever you like to do. If you feel like it's stronger one way and it seems to prove itself, then go with it. But we'll have to push that together and make 2 of these, and then we'll have one back in the corner here, and we'll get that put together when we take it out also. So there's a few things we'll do after the fact, but we try to get most of it in line before we take it out. So here's a good example of the countersinking situation. Since I do want to put these little back braces or crossover braces in, and it would be going the full thickness of this piece right here, okay? So if you take our regular screws, they're really as wide as the piece, or they're as long as the piece is wide. So not real effective. So that's where the tape comes in as effective on here. So if we put the tape at the surface there, it would go much deeper into there. Now we don't have to go that deep. I might let it set out about midway, and then we'll go with that. Okay, so with a little bit of extra work here, I got this one back in. Just pretty much the same stuff I did on this side that I showed you earlier. Just a couple of angles. Gluing, the countersinking, toe nailing some of it. And the floor, I have it bolted down here and here. I need to do the other corners. And then a couple of spots over here, which will have to be the careful areas, because that's away from the frame rails and out over other areas. So I might actually use a nut and a bolt with a lock washer on it and just run a little bit larger hole. and that way it'll all clamp down. And if you do need to get under there, I might even put a tack weld, just like make a weldment nut, and we can hold it all together that way. That way it's all nice and flat, because if you can see from the camera here, it kind of bounces. That's just where it's pushing off. So we want it to be nice and secure, but at the same time, if I ever want to take it out, I just have a handful of screws and the whole thing just undoes. So in the next episode of this, I'll show you how I want to anchor this to the sides, so that even if we get the floor down solid, we don't want this shaking around still. It'll actually go into one of the upright beams beside or behind the wood paneling here. And the paneling still needs all the insulation put behind it, so this is not a definite permanent thing yet. So we'll have to anchor it into the posting behind there, a couple spots, try to make it nice and simple, nice clean install. And then we'll put the cladding over top of this, the top here, and we'll do some finish areas and put some MDF in where the speakers will be. It'll be on both sides. It's pretty much, just a duplicate or twins. And we'll work out how we want to do like the tonneau cover type thing, the bed cover situation, and see how we do that. I'll be thinking on it, because I'm not absolutely definite how everything mechanically will work. I have the vision. I know there will be a panel across here, all the way up here to the carpet. And there's the carpet, by the way. Get a little sneak preview of that. And we'll work a piece across here that can be moved easily. And I'd like to do something to make somewhat of a kind of a corner wall here and here. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, just stay tuned. You'll see that. I might put some spindles there. If you look at a lot of the old bands, they had spindles in them. So I'd like to find something kind of interesting that would fit the architecture of all the other stuff in here, kind of like the beams. You haven't really seen the beams that much yet, but I'll show you that after I get the lighting completed in it. I got a little part that I ordered, and it's been bouncing all over the United States. It even came within 10 miles of me, and it went back out somewhere else. So go figure. UPS/USPS. Anyway, so that'll be the next episode, that we'll look at some of this stuff here and go further with that, and that'll be down the road. But in the meantime, thanks for coming to the Hoosier Garage. If you haven't subscribed yet, what's going on? Let's get to it. And we'll see you next time, part 2. Van bed thing.